that you experience in infertility, whether you've had a miscarriage or not, it's still loss of a dream, of a plan you had for yourself, perhaps of what you thought your body could or couldn't do. Loss is universal and grief is universal.
Welcome to Making It. I'm your host, Terry Wollman, and my guest today is fertility coach, creator, and mom of twins, Abbe Feder. Abbe Feder, welcome to Making It.
Thank you. I realize what's not in my bio is that I also used to work with you, for you.
Yes, well, with
my
me.
boss, with
yeah.
you, but you were technically my boss. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. And
I think we both agree that there's a reason people walk into your lives, right? And we can talk more about that. But on a random whim of needing a little extra money, I went on an interview because you needed some help. And that was more than 11, 12, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. So
yeah. And you became my production coordinator from my company and were an invaluable part of me creating music and content and also the beginning of a great friendship. So that random moment has not only led to this conversation, but one of a friendship that I hold really dear. So
same.
And I love the randomness of life in that way. I mean, you were pre-married. You were a single actress.
Yeah, a single actress in her 20s in LA. And you were like, yeah, I want to hear about your stories. I mean...
Yeah. Well, let me start with something, which is that your website homepage opens with the question, who's that girl? So who is that girl?
I love that. Who is that girl? Gosh, I think my children are 3 and my twins, we'll get to that more later, but I think there's so much self-discovery that happens after you become a mom, especially after it took me a really long time. I think I had expectations about what I would be as a human, let alone as a mother. I think we forget after we have kids that we are also people and also humans. A lot of mothers, I think that's where a lot of struggle in motherhood comes, is you forget that you have your own interests and dreams and aspirations and wants because you feel like you're supposed to be a certain way once you've had kids, which is in some way, I think, devoting your whole life to them. And that doesn't work out for me so well. So I think I've spent the last 3 years since my babies got here still figuring out who I am, who's that girl. I think I'm very different than I was when I worked with you. But I am a mom and a wife, and I find I've always placed a high value on very meaningful relationships. But as I grow older, I'm finding those more and more important. So all of that to say, in terms of who I am, I don't have much time for BS in general.
Right.
And my time is short and sweet, and I like to fill it with the most that I can. I'm a fertility coach, which happened almost by accident, only it was a long accident in the making. And I just believe that life is about sharing stories. So I like to help people with their stories of becoming mothers. And I also like to share other people's stories as an actress and as a producer. I just think that, I feel like such a human element of sense of compassion and empathy and just meaningful connection right now as a person and as a mom, that's what I envision myself doing forever in terms of who I am, finding ways to bring people's stories into the light.
One of the quotes that I've read, because I've been researching, even though we know each other quite well, is you saying, now that I have twins and my time is even more sacred, I focus on quality everywhere. I'm committed to seeking that for myself and offering the same to my clients, my family, and my friends. That seems, you didn't have a high bullshit meter or
threshold,
threshold, even before becoming a mom and a wife and everything. But it's more of a mission statement, like a conscious mission statement for you now, it seems.
That's exactly right. I've always, like you said, I never had a high bullshit threshold, but the emphasis in that quote on the quality, and just what's transpired specifically over the last 2 years, while all of us have had to shift and reprioritize, I just aim to bring meaning, very quality meaning, to my life, to my family's life, and to my clients' and friends' lives too.
Yeah. One of the things that you told me about that I didn't know, but it doesn't surprise me at all, is the fact that you've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And in one example is your version of a lemonade stand when you were a kid was called Tchotchkes Unlimited, where when you were 8 years old, you sold glorified junk out in front of your family's apartment.
So I like that laugh. Thank you.
That is so you.
Yes. That is something that I'm only recently learning as I become a more full entrepreneur. That has always been a part of my spirit. I never thought of it that way or articulated it that way, but I'm finding myself when I see people who are mildly succeeding somewhere and like wanting to help them create an entire business around it. They might not want my opinion, so I'm not saying I'm doing that, but and then I realized from that small age I did monetize very young, and I just find that especially with acting too, I think you need to have this. So many people hate the business side of acting. That never bothered me. I always, to me, that was like the business sense of it. And I really enjoyed it. And, I waited tables like many actresses for so long. And there's a very entrepreneurial experience that happens there because, there's the high sales, high tips, high salary. It became much more of a business to me than just like going in and slinging, dishes around.
Right.
So I feel that's something that always needs to be fed within my soul, is that entrepreneurial spirit.
That's kind of a blessing because so many artists struggle with that.
Yes.
And have to find a way to embrace that. But it's already such a part of you that there's nothing, it's not about embracing it. It's just about honoring it.
Exactly. And I feel when I'm not honoring it, I feel sad. I feel a void. I feel something missing. You know what I mean? I need to be feeding that part of myself, just like I need to feed my creative self.
I do. So I want to give one more piece of background and question, and then I want to get into your podcast and also your company and this life-altering experience that you had that has created a shift that actually so many people get to benefit from now, through your company. So you were talking, and I was mentioning in the beginning of the show that you grew up on the streets of New York's Upper East Side, proud graduate of PS6, Brooklyn Tech, Park Avenue Synagogue, which you call the Harvard of Hebrew schools. You left the city to earn a degree in behavioral science at the University of Wisconsin in Madison before returning to your hometown to study at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I think it's really important for the context for people to understand where you came from. Here's my question. How did studying acting prepare you for becoming a fertility coach, creator, and mom of twins?
It's a great something to think about. I just want to go on record to say that the principal of my Hebrew school called it the Harvard of Hebrew schools. I did not name it.
Okay. That was me paraphrasing. Thanks for the correction.
Yes. So, acting is reacting in so many ways. And I think, I love improv. I've been part of an improv community forever. So I think being able to act quickly, like within the fertility community, and especially as a mother, I think any parent would agree, you need to think fast. Those are chops that I learned from a lot of theater school. And there's a skill that where you have to be thinking a step ahead while being also in the moment. And I think we all strive for it. I don't know whether we've mastered it, but that's something that I think a big thing I took away from drama school.
It's interesting to hear you say that music is very similar, of course.
Yes.
As you know.
So it's an art. That's why it's an art form, and it's not everybody can just do it.
Well, you have to have the ability, and Lisa, Dr. Summerauer, my moderator, knows as well, because Lisa, as well as all the work that you do in coaching, you have an acting background as well. Like Abby, you have that in common.
It prepares us for everything.
That's right.
Absolutely. uh, so let's talk about the podcast, which happened before the business. And it's an amazing podcast that I want everybody to go listen to. A little bit about background on that. Abbe and Isaac Feder met in the summer of 2008. I remember because I was there. Yeah. For Isaac, it was love at first sight. Eventually, Abbe got on board. That's pretty funny. They were engaged a year later and got married because of their love for each other and also because they wanted to have children. So here's something about the podcast. It's called Immaculate Conception. Immaculate Conception is a limited podcast series that follows a married couple, Abbe and Isaac, on their complicated and emotional quest to start a family. Here's what episode 1 description is. Meet Isaac and Abbe. After more than 7 years of marriage, we find them struggling on their journey to become parents. 3 years of unsuccessful medical intervention and a devastating miscarriage have left them exhausted, both emotionally and financially. They returned to San Francisco, where Isaac proposed to renew their commitment to becoming parents. Abbe, take it from there, just talking about your experience.
Yeah. So when we started the podcast, we had been in the game 3 years, and we had done several failed in vitro attempts and a miscarriage. We made that podcast as a way to process our grief. We felt we had nowhere really to turn. Our nearest and dearest loved ones did not know how to handle us, did not know what to say to us. It is such a shameful issue for many people that it's just one of those topics that is not brought out into the light. And we were encouraged to just grab a recorder and start recording. And we did. And those recordings really became like therapy for us. We recorded doctor's appointments, fights, pillow talk, the ups, the downs, phone calls from our nurses, and everything you would want to know if you were going through it. And
by the way, just to interject, because that's what's so amazing about the podcast, we are there listening while you're getting your news. Your good news and your bad news.
That's right. And
we're with you.
It was important for us to have people really understand what that experience feels like. And also the loss that you experience in infertility, whether you've had a miscarriage or not, it's still loss of a dream, of a plan you had for yourself, perhaps of what you thought your body could or couldn't do. Loss is universal and grief is universal. And one of the things that became so meaningful to us from doing the podcast is how many people reached out that did not experience infertility and felt that it was still so incredibly poignant to them, not just for the sake of understanding what it's like to have people go through it or to know people who go through it, but to process their own grief. Every time a cycle of IVF didn't work, it felt like someone died. So we all know the experience of what it's like when someone dies. And yet we can talk about when somebody's parent, sibling, close friend passes away, but we don't talk about what a failed IVF cycle feels like. And there's a lot of similarity there. So we really felt like this was a topic, and specifically a topic of our generation, that just needed to be talked about more. And so we created Immaculate Conception. We did not know, by the way, when we grabbed a recorder and started bringing it around, it's going to turn into. That was a series of, being in the right place at the right time with the right need for this topic and knowing a few people who could help. But we just did it to get it out there for ourselves. And it turned out that so many other people could relate.
Let me ask you a personal question. And then I want to talk about your company, InCircle Fertility, and bring your partner on as well.
Yeah.
Your podcast is incredibly honest, intimate, revealing, courageous, and so many other things. And I'm wondering, how did you and Isaac both survive the experience of in vitro, but also of producing your podcast? I mean, there were very personal and uncomfortable moments that you let us in on, both of you, and thank you for that. But how did you get through it? Because being married and going through in vitro, or even just having a successful pregnancy and having a baby, it's real hard. It tests your marriage.
It tests your marriage. And that is something we talk to our clients about all the time. So a couple things. The timing of the podcast actually releasing was incredibly awkward for us, because we had been told when at some point along the way, and you hear this in the podcast, we were told it was over for us. We were never going to have our own biological children. And we did one sort of Hail Mary, 12th treatment, and we got pregnant. And so, I mean, literally, I'll never forget telling the producers we were pregnant, and they were like, "You're kidding. No, you're kidding. No, you're kidding." I mean, they couldn't believe it. So everything in LA and Hollywood takes way more time than you want it to. And so by the time the podcast came out, not only were we expecting, but I was like 3 weeks from expecting. And so I was getting the most beautiful notes of people saying, we don't reveal that early in the podcast because you go on this journey with us. So many people were reaching out saying, "Oh my God, I'm praying for you. I wish you have, the family." And I was like, "Oh, thanks. I'm due in 3 weeks with twins." So it was a very awkward feeling. We had posted no pictures on social media, no announcements on social media, which also is partly due to what happens, pregnancy after loss and after infertility is a whole traumatic experience in itself. So that was something we didn't anticipate feeling in terms of when the podcast came out, being so opposite, like going back to that despair we had been feeling only several months earlier and having people really respond to it while we were then expecting babies. So that was very surprising to us. Now, to the other question, how did our marriage survive the podcast and B, infertility? I have to say, I think Isaac, I'm so proud of him. And I think as much as women don't talk about infertility, men do not talk about infertility. And, he's a much more private person than I am. I'm like an open book to anyone. Anytime you want to sit and buy me a cocktail, I will talk. That is for anyone in the room, anyone here, let me know. Isaac, much more private and doesn't, he likes to be behind the camera and I like to be in front of the camera.
Well, he's a film director.
He's an
award-winning film director.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah. So I think because it was audio and not visual, it felt like a safe space to him. And he not just was vulnerable, but let us put our fights out there. And those fights, for the record, to his defense, if you read any of the comments or reviews about our fighting, everyone just calls me a bitch. So he was like, "Sure, I'll put this out there because you sound horrible." And I was like, "You're kind of right," but that's what I was going through, and that was the truth of what I was going through.
Well, that's the intimacy and the vulnerability, and me knowing you both really well.
Yeah,
I was squirming. I felt like I walked into the room and I should shut the door and say, "I'll be in the other room."
Exactly,
it's
and
that
you know
personal.
what? And every couple has those fights,
right? Of
and
course.
I'm not suggesting that we blast them all over the place. But it was like, that is the actual normal thing that happens with couples going through infertility. And we survived it because we have a very strong marriage, and you'll hear a million times that I wanted to literally murder him.
Yeah.
In the podcast. But I think it was an important model for other people because infertility can really bring couples closer together, but also really drive them apart. Mm-hmm. And I think some people think that if you're fighting that badly, you must not have a good marriage. You must not be able to make it through it. It must be a sign to end it. And I thought it was important to show that, like, even with this, we still loved each other enough to forgive, to move on, to get help when we needed therapy, to commit to going through that together.
Right.
So that was kind of how I got through it. And also in the podcast, you hear by like episode 11 or 12, I gave him what I call a sympathy shot, which was one shot with nothing in it after I had done, I don't know how many thousands of shots.
Right.
Like, why didn't I think of that earlier? I should have done that so much earlier. But like at one point I was like, "You want to know what this feels like? I'm going to show you what this feels like." And I gave him a physical shot and he was terrified. It took him like 20 minutes to finally muster the courage to take the shot. And it dawned on me that like they should have to experience some piece of the physical pain as well to help you get through it.
That's so interesting. I agree. I agree with you. So let's bring Sophie on.
Yes.
And let's talk about your new company and why you and your business partner, Sophie, created InCircle Fertility, what it's about. And also my question to you, Abbe, is, was there a specific moment when you knew it was your life's path to help others along their way?
When the podcast came out and so many women reached out to me, I I was like, this is it. I need to help other women. I didn't know how, and I didn't know when, and I didn't know what it would look like, or if whether someone else would be involved in that with me, but I just knew that that was part of it. I mean, I can only say that calmly now because I ended up on the other side with my babies in my arms. If I were still twins, if I were still
cute
struggling
twins.
in that arena, really cute twins, tough as hell right now, but real cute. If I were still struggling in the arena or still feeling that grief every day, I don't know that I'd be able to help others through it. So and by the way, let me just say, Sophie is my business partner. And I know you're going to ask her, but I call her my work wife. So she's like my other spouse.
I understand.
So I talk to her basically more than I talk to my husband.
Right. Sophie, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is also my sound check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, great. We hear you well.
Yay. So happy to be here, Terry.
My pleasure to shine the light on both of you and the very important work that you're doing. There's I think I've got them in front of me. There's 6 pointers on your website that talk about what you do: strategies and tips for an emotionally resilient experience, decision-making guidance and support, preparing for doctor's visits and procedures, financing your fertility journey, fertility resources, and holding space. So it's already really clear when I went to your website that you are an all-inclusive experience, a support system, not an experience, a support system. And you both have personal experience, but also you're both highly trained with both of your backgrounds. So I'm going to just pass the mic to both of you. Tell us about your company and the work that you do.
Yeah, so do you want to tell our cute date story, like how we met?
Sure, our meet cute, as it were.
Our meet cute. Yeah, you're much more millennial than I am. I'm meet cute.
Meanwhile, I'm 4 weeks older than Abby.
Yeah.
6 weeks. We actually met before going through any of this, at least before I was going through any of it. And we met through a mutual friend, and then we lost touch. And then subsequently, a few years later, I was in the thick of it, and I had posted some article that I had written on social media about pregnancy loss or similar. And Abby reached out to me privately and said, we became Facebook friends a few years ago, but never actually connected. And I'm in the thick of it too. And, we always say we've talked every day since. That was definitely a meet cute moment times 2. She ended up kind of default coaching me through my journey, partly because of who she is, but also because she was a little further, she'd been going through it for longer. So she really knew the landscape more than I did. But that was definitely the beginning. She was coaching me through it. Remarkably, we both emerged on the other side. And that is, as Abby already said, that's kind of what enabled us to create the space, just mentally, I think, and emotionally, to figure out how we could, as we say, turn our pain into purpose.
Exactly.
What would you like to tell our listeners, Abby? I'll just kick this one to you. That would make them feel safe or understand men or women, men couples, women couples, whatever the situation is. What are they going to find when they call you or email you?
So the biggest thing that we tell people, and this is, we always say we want to be the coaches we wish we'd had along our own journeys. And so that makes it easy in a way, right?
Yeah.
But this is such an out of control situation. Everything is out of your control. Your body's not doing what you want it to do. Usually your doctor's not doing what you want them to do. Nothing is happening in the right time frame. Nothing is happening in the time frame you want it to happen in. And so we can't guarantee you a baby. I wish we could.
Right.
But we can guarantee that you'll feel much more in control of this out of control situation. We try to make plans. We do make plans. Sometimes they have to change for various medical reasons or COVID or whatever the case may be. But navigating this with a plan is a completely different experience than kind of haphazardly figuring out what you're going to do as it comes. And really, this is something that speaks to really every aspect of my life. And I'm only learning to articulate it this way now. But Sophie and I really feel strongly about living by design and not by default. So that has to do with how we create our business, how we create our relationships. And so we help our clients navigate this by design and not by default, by the way that things are just happening to them from their clinic, from their doctor, from their body, etc.
Sophie, I'd read on your website, I believe that's where I saw it, that infertility warriors, I love the word warriors, are fierce, loyal, and incredibly supportive.
Yeah. This experience transforms you, I think, like any painful experience, but this is such a specific kind of an experience. It's an experience that often happens in the shadows. So a lot of people in your life that know you well don't even necessarily know that you're going through it. They certainly don't know the extent to which you're suffering or what it's like. So that is very bonding, that feeling of sort of coming upon someone else who's been in the trenches like you have and gets it, and that's a big part of our coaching style as well, is that we really get it because we have been there. We have experienced the phone calls that you were describing on Abby's podcast. That sense of overwhelming loss and pain and grief is very hard to understand unless you've been in that moment yourself, and you still carry it with you. So I think that's the term infertility warriors, because it is a war. You are fighting in the trenches for sure. But also that I think the community and the camaraderie that it produces is just knowing that someone else, has been there just like you have, and really gets it on a level that most people don't.
Thanks for answering that. So you give, by the way, shameless plug time right now. Let's give your website.
InCircleFertility.com. InCircleFertility.com. You mean InCircleFertility.com?
It will be up shortly. I've been bragging about the actress fertility coach part, but it's coming. Say that one more time, though, for the kids in the back row.
InCircleFertility.com.
I hope they heard it clearly.
InCircle.
So if people, one of the things that you offer is a 30-minute consultation, or a connection call is what you call it. Just to see if you're a good fit.
Exactly.
So, and no surprise, Sophie, we haven't met before, but knowing Abbe, I can't imagine she wouldn't partner with somebody who has the same level of integrity that you and everybody in this conversation right now bring to everything that they do. So you don't work with every client that calls you because it might not be a good fit for them, or you can assess that you might not be able to provide for them what they need. But so people can just call and get a half hour with the two of you?
That's right. You get 30 minutes no matter what. Because here's the thing. First of all, we're learning. The more we do it, the more we learn. We have what we call our champagne client, right? Like what we feel we can help most with, but there's always curveballs that get thrown. And that is the nature of this work and what makes it so crazy. And also why my acting background has come in handy.
Right.
And also for Sophie, and she can talk more about this, but she has her MSW. So she is so well trained and so amazing when curveballs are thrown our way. But sometimes it's not a fit. And it really often depends on at what point of out of controlness, I don't know, for lack of a better term, the client might be at, because when we get people, it's not usually at the start of their journey. It's usually once they've experienced a little bit of pain and loss, because that's when the out of control part starts to pop in. And what we're learning is, like, we wish we were there from even sooner, because we would like to be helping. A lot of times we help clients switch clinics or switch doctors, which can be really stressful. And we would love to be there when we help them pick their doctor and that kind of thing. But we have to really get a sense of where the person is and whether they're going to be receptive to help or not, or if it's out of scope for us or not out of scope for us. So what am I missing?
Yeah, no, honestly, that totally covered it. I just feel like the way that we approach each and every person is to meet them where they are, wherever that is on the process. It's a continuum, a trying to conceive continuum. So wherever they are on that continuum, we meet them there. But as you started by saying, Terry, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a perfect fit, because we are also realists. We're very practical in the way we go about our work, and we are not hyper silver lining people. And we really believe in the art and the science of infertility. And to that end, we want to help anyone and everyone navigate through the process, but that's not everyone ends up sort of finding the success or being able to find the success that we want for them. So, yeah.
And Sophie, you just used the word art as well as science, the art and the science. Why? Why that word?
The science of assisted reproductive technology has come a very, very long way in a relatively short period of time, but it has not come nearly far enough. And it can't so far, it can't yet, but we are confident it will. But, they, meaning the scientists, only know so much about the human body and the reproductive system, and there's only so much they can control. And at the end of the day, a lot of the variables can be controlled, but they cannot make an embryo implant, and they cannot make that embryo grow and turn into a successful pregnancy and a baby. They cannot do that for you. Again, they being the scientists. So a lot of it exists in a gray area where the doctor and the patient are working together, hopefully with our help, to make decisions with whatever information they have available to them at the time. That information is constantly changing. Patterns start to develop, or the body changes unpredictably. It really, the science is incredible, of course, but it's just not going to get us all the way there to where we want to be.
Right. And it's one of the first things that a doctor, any great doctor, will tell you at your first infertility visit. We can't promise you a baby, just like Abbe, you said.
You're so right. I actually, I went to a few different doctors, but my very first one, I will never forget that he definitely included that in the conversation. He'd been in the business of making babies through assisted reproductive technology for like over 30 years. He had, published a manual, blah, blah, blah. And he said, look, we've come so far, but we cannot necessarily get you to the finish line. These are all the things we still don't know.
Mm-hmm. Abbe, one of the things that you've said to me, and I know about you because we're friends, but you said that there's so many times in my life where I had to just be patient for what I wanted. Certainly as an actor, as a creative, my experience as an artist and as well. So I understand that. And that's a broad, that covers everybody who's breathing,
Yeah, right.
it doesn't have to do with just being an artist, right. But you identify yourself as a terribly impatient person. Mm-hmm. In some ways, I see that from listening to you and Sophie talk about your work together as being a real asset, because you bring an empathy and a compassion to probably what would be a very common default of couples, or maybe, and I would imagine they're not all couples. There will. Right. So I'm self-correcting as we speak, because
it's okay.
There's so many there's just so many variations on people, having a child. But anyway, I think I do see that as an asset. Do you? And Sophie, are you the same way? Or are you the patient one in the marriage, the work marriage?
I feel like between the two of us, Sophie's more patient than I am, and neither of us is particularly patient. Yeah.
So you both have that asset.
That's right. I mean, I think that is what makes us successful. I think you're right. And it really does all go back to that design versus default, because just like when you're living in the impatient or in the waiting period that happens during infertility, that's the default. You have no choice. But right. When you're designing what that will look like, and that is also the art that Sophie was talking about, is navigating that, is making an artistic, like so much is split moment decision making. And you have to be able to design your path and not just live with what everything around you is telling you to do. So it sort of brings back your to-do list or your action plan when maybe you have no other choice but to just wait, right? That's the patient versus impatient. Mm-hmm. Sophie, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always considered myself one of the least patient people. Abby definitely puts me to the test. Gives me a run for my money as far as just winning that title. But yes, patience is a really interesting concept in the context of infertility because, as Abby mentioned, there's so much waiting and the timeline is so often out of your control. So being able to dance with the patience versus the being proactive and finding, how to exist in the space between those two. That's a lot of what we help our clients do is, it's very, very difficult to be patient during the journey of infertility. And yet you don't really have a choice. You can only do so much. Part of what we're doing is empowering our clients to do as much as they can possibly do. But just like IVF is an art and a science, so is the waiting, right? There's only so much you can do. And then there's still going to be this space at the end where you have to be able to work on your mindset and work on how you exist in the world and to release, to try and release a little bit of it because it is not in our control ultimately.
I'm keeping an eye on the clock because I know you both have a client in 15 minutes, and we were off to a late start today. So I wanted to open it up to our virtual audience. If there's anybody in our virtual audience today on Fireside that has a question or a comment, or Dr. Lisa, of course, yourself as well, please jump in right now. And I want to also hand the floor over to you both to just cover anything else that we want to get in the next couple of minutes of the conversation before I get to closing questions. So do we have any questions, Dr. Lisa?
I'm looking now. I don't see anyone with their hands raised, and I know we are short for time. I just want to say thank you. You two are speaking my language. I'm hearing things like holding space, and my favorite word, I think, in the world is empowerment. And I love the fact that you are helping people sit in the moment with what is.
Right.
It's always hope for what we want, but sitting in that moment and accepting what is. And I can't think of the author's name. She talks about what is, and when we don't want to deal with what is, when we ignore the what is when we step over into suffering because we're denying what actually is. So I love what you're doing. The connections here, University of Vermont, Pennsylvania. I'm an East Coast girl. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So
I went to Madison. That's that's crazy.
I know. It's just really kind of insane. But thank you for the work that you're doing. My mom lost a child very early on when I was in my preteens. She and my dad had gotten married. And I remember, that experience of losing a child and not being able to get pregnant and then getting pregnant and losing the child. And so I just love that you keep people in a space where they can be courageous enough to live what's actually happening with them and to know that they're going to be fine no matter what happens, but to have the hope and the possibility that you could bring a life into this world. Because for me, it is the true miracle to have witnessed someone give birth. It is like, I just think there are two things that could convert an atheist. Watch a baby get born and go to the Grand Canyon. If you could watch a baby born in the Grand Canyon,
then you're like,
done.
It's like,
right, that's a game changer. Right.
Yeah. Game changer.
Then you're becoming a clergy at that point.
Exactly. You're
Absolutely. So Abbe and Sophie, what else would you like to share? I can certainly keep throwing questions at you, but I want to just hand you 5 minutes right now just to talk about anything that you want to talk about before I get to my closing questions.
I had one thing I wanted to say, and then so feel free to jump in. But because you asked, everyone can get a 30-minute time slot with us. Yes, that's our connection call that we do. But then when we work with people, I just want to bring this back up because it speaks to the nature of the work and the nature of Sophie and my personality and what we were talking about before in terms of meaningful relationships. We sign people on for 6 to 12 months. So one of the most unfair parts about infertility is that it's a lot of hurry up and wait. And so we really like to give a nice amount of time that we're going to be working together, because sometimes you're in the middle of a cycle where you're waiting for a month. And so you don't really need us. But then on the 24-hour part where you do need us, you might be texting us literally 2 a.m, 7 a.m. And I can't guarantee we're around at 2 a.m, but between the two of us, we joke on our website that there's a guaranteed 12-hour turnaround time, and it's usually more like 12 minutes. Yeah. So we can be there for you. And we always say to our clients, you can text us from the stirrups, and some of them truly do. And sometimes they're like, I'm at the doctor. It's happening now. I don't remember what we talked about with this or the other thing. And therapists are wonderful, and there's a place for them. And a nurse or a nurse practitioner is wonderful, and there's a place for them. But we are literally the person you need to text in the moment. We are there for you. And we are that over the course of hopefully a year, 6 months to a year, so that we can get to know you and know what's working with your body and what's working with your relationship, and how your husband or partner or wife are dealing with each thing that comes your way. So I just wanted to go a little more into detail on that and not say it's just like a 30-minute call and then we see what happens. That's
right.
How we work with people.
So also one of the things that you do if somebody's calling you from the stirrups is literally is that you can help them formulate their questions.
Exactly. And we meet with people before they have significant doctor's appointments. We talk out every possible scenario and every possible question, and we send a recap of literally the paper you could bring to the doctor's office if you wanted to, of everything you need to cover in that appointment. Because sometimes you're in the doctor's office and you're halfway through the consult or the call or whatever, the appointment, and they're starting to wrap it up and you're like, oh God, yesterday I had all these questions and now I don't remember what they are.
Right.
Or you're halfway through and it's taking a completely different turn that you thought it was going to a week ago. So we really try to get ahead of all of that. So I'm sorry, I'm talking so much. You.
No, this is your show, girl. Yeah, I mean, but you're also just nailing it. It's like we take the entire ride with you, and nobody wants to think, that this is a 6-month or a 12-month or God forbid, even longer of a process. A, the reality is it probably is, and that's just the unfortunate truth. But B, we also say that hopefully we will also be able to walk alongside you as you go through pregnancy after infertility or pregnancy after loss, which can be very triggering and very anxiety provoking as well. So part of our 6 month or 12-month package is, hopefully we are going to get there together, and we're also going to be able to accompany you during that period of time too, which can really have its own very unique challenges.
Well, everybody needs an advocate when they go to a doctor.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Exactly right.
Regardless of what you were there for. So, particularly, and then again, you add the really strong, mind and mood altering, medications that get injected into you. You are not yourself, and the
tens of thousands of dollars you've maybe spent already or are being told you will have to spend. The stakes are just sky high all the time.
Right. But you're also, again, you're at a state of exhaustion. It's a highly elevated state of a lot of emotion, all the time. And then, your hormones are raging because they're being medically manipulated.
Exactly.
So, it's so great that you do this, that you offer this, because again, you said it earlier on, you wanted to be the coaches or you wanted to be what wasn't there for you when you both went through this. You want to provide a service that didn't exist or you didn't know about. It wasn't accessible.
Exactly.
And I think it's really wonderful that you do that. I would imagine there are many doctors, fertility specialists that are happy that you're part of the journey. And there are some who probably are not very appreciative of what you do.
Totally. It's kind of that, the like when you have a patient who comes in, he's like, well, I looked up all my illnesses on Google and it says here, and the doctor's like, great, I'm competing with Dr. Google. So we try not to do that. And we work with we've been very lucky to work. I mean, the thing is, the doctors kind of have no choice but to get on board with this kind of growing fertility support, because it only behooves them to make good relationships with us, because we literally recommend doctors all the time.
Absolutely. Right.
So that piece of it is helpful, but you're right. They're definitely not all super fans, let's say.
Well, since we're getting close to the end of the show, I'd like to ask Abbe and Sophie, if you don't mind, are my closing questions that I ask all of my guests. And If we had time, I'd ask you both. But I'm going to target these to you, Abbe. Since this show is called Making It, what does making it mean to you, both personally and professionally?
I think making it is finding some sense of peace and happiness in the life you are creating and not allowing everything around you to make that life for you. So I feel like I keep saying the same thing, but making it is living your life by design and not by default.
And it hasn't escaped me. You know, a few people brought this to my attention when we've been promoting this show. The idea of me doing an episode of Making It about literally making
yes.
babies. You know, that's what this episode is about. But it's not just about making babies. It's about the journey and life along the way. But it also is interesting to me because, again, you are creative, and you know, and your journey, it's all connected. It's all the same. You know, what you were doing now is no different than what you were doing when you were acting in movies, and no different than when you were selling tchotchkes as an 8-year-old at your lemonade stand in in New York. It's the same. It is the same.
It's so true. It's so true. I feel like that's lucky that it's all the same. And I've pivoted in several parts of my life about chasing what makes me happy in that moment. But I do feel like at the core, it is all the same. And that feels very lucky.
Mm-hmm. Can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
Patience. Just kidding. That did not drive my career. I'm the most impatient person, as we've already discussed. I would say clear communication, always open and clear communication, even when you are afraid of what might be received on the other end. Find a productive, constructive way to communicate it. Planning / calendar integrity. And that's something I continue to work on right now. Calendar integrity in terms of like setting what you're going to do for the day, week, month, and sticking to it. And that is a discipline in and of itself. And it's, I think, crucial to success. And fun. I think that there needs to be fun. I can't take things too seriously. I just can't. And that's why it was okay to open up my fights with my husband, because we meant what we said in the moment, but we also can laugh at it now. And I think that is crucial to business, to relationships, to all of it. So have fun, plan, and have calendar integrity, and communicate clearly.
Got it. And by the way, since I know your husband, Isaac he's a great guy. He's super talented, but I'm so glad that you found each other, and that and that and he is still your husband, you know, through everything that you have been through. It's a testament to both of you.
Thank you. And I just want to add, Sophie wrote an absolutely beautiful piece about putting her marriage on the brink of extinction during her journey, which if you go onto our website and look under our blog, you can find it. But she had a therapist say to her once, and this is something to take with you in the infertility world, like, if at the end of this you get a baby, but you have no marriage, will it have been worth it? And I think it's really something we bring to our clients too. But thank you for saying that about Isaac. And he's a catch, and you saw some of the dreck I was bringing around before. So I think I married up, you know?
Well, you ran him by me. I vetted him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
and your puppy. I feel really
it's right.
an important part of your life, as you are in mine.
Yeah.
Abbe, my final question, and by the way, both good choices in dogs and husbands.
Thank you.
At this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Keep at it. Just keep at it. I think sometimes you wonder, should I switch? What am I doing? Is there a reason? But keep at it, whatever it is. And it can change, but do it with passion. Just keep at it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Sophie and Abbe, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And for
sharing.
Terry,
that was lovely.
My pleasure. And for sharing your truth, your honesty, and the work that you do. I love you too, so much, and so grateful to have you in my life, and to watch the evolution of both of our lives.
That's right.
They continue to get richer every year.
Thank you.
Dr. Lisa, thank you always for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa.
Always. I'm thinking of who I'm sending your InCircle Fertility.
Great.
Fantastic.
To. Yes.
We'll connect offline too. Terry's been talking you up for all week, so I know we need to connect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to our live virtual audience, our fireside audience, our Facebook Live audience, and to all of our audience who is streaming at your leisure, you can listen to the shows, all of it, at anywhere and anytime that you want to. But we know there's a lot you could do with your time. So thanks for spending with us. I can say on behalf of all of us, we really appreciate you. So having said that, thank you again. And everybody stay safe, stay inspired, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Terry.